I think by this point, a fair amount of people have asked me time and again how I make my layouts, and I never really gave an answer to that inquiry. I did tease something akin to a list of principles that I usually follow whenever I make my layouts, which could be seen in the second wave part of level name, but not very many people would have noticed this anyway. Some of these are pretty straightforward. Don't have creator points in mind because that's a terrible motivation to have. Place a white spike and the logo at the end of the level, but make sure to hide the logo until the last beat on which you want to end the level on. Use the white dot object for rotations, which require an invisible center. Each segment of the level must utilize different effects unless you want the level to be pure chaos. Stuff like that. But anyone would complain that those are pretty vague, so instead I'll be explaining like some sort of self-promotional guide on what I like to follow when making my layouts. First things first, as much as possible, make gameplay where you can tap to the beat and vibe with the music. I've always liked to follow this principle even for the most unsight readable of sections, because regardless of the chaos a player may see on their screen, the knowledge of just tapping in sync with the music makes it less unfair. Even in the stage 2 and 3 sections of level name, most of the taps there are ones that follow the music, and as much as possible have your background pulse triggers also align with the beat of the music, or where you want the player to tap if appropriate. Here are just a few examples of this being evident in some of my levels. Second, place your triggers at the top or the bottom of the area of gameplay, but not so far from the gameplay space. I've seen some other layout creators, and I personally find it notorious that they would place the triggers directly in the gameplay space itself, which makes editor playtesting an absolute pain. But don't place them too far from the gameplay area because it could prove to be a hassle when trying to edit triggers and compare gameplay or effect results. And don't just scatter them so much as possible, try to retain some sort of horizontal alignment for the appropriate trigger so that it becomes more understandable than just a jumbled mess. 3. Allow a small amount of time for the player to respond. As much as possible, and if not appropriate, don't have a gameplay effect execute for a group while the player is interacting with that group. Make sure that the player has at least some time to react to a gameplay effect, but don't have it execute too early. You can have the duration of a trigger, such as a move or rotate trigger, end just before the player interacts with the affected group. Fourth, split your effects between segments. Don't throw everything into the mix if you aren't going for chaos. Instead, properly explore an effect before moving to another effect. Try not to repeat concepts over multiple segments. If a segment for a particular concept is done, think of a new one. The effects also don't have to be that different from each other. You can tweak an effect idea a little bit or combine effects to get another effect idea. I see a lot of layouts wherein the effects are sort of crammed in together and it becomes more difficult to focus and understand what exactly is happening. And lastly, don't focus too much on design. From what I've observed in my time of playing both rated and unrated GD levels, a majority of creators seem to focus too much on design and as a result make bad gameplay. Though I myself admittedly don't make the best of gameplay, I still like to keep a sort of balance. The design doesn't serve to be an obstruction for the gameplay unless you want absolute chaos, and the gameplay doesn't get dumbed down into requiring only a few clicks. Of course, you can also choose not to add design and go all out on gameplay, but by then I feel like you'd accidentally make a hard to extreme demon level. I personally don't aim for the demographic of demon grinders or tryhards. I just like to keep the difficulty at a level where I think more casual players could potentially enjoy it. Of course, I don't always follow these principles. Sometimes I'll feel a tad bit too lazy and then the results suck. But other than that, these are pretty much how I make my layouts. You can follow them or not, that's up to you. I just thought it was worth sharing. Yeah, that's pretty much it.